fucking run for his money.
Jake Paul surprises his fans every time his fight is announced. This time he is going to fight the greatest of all-time fighters, Canelo Alvarez. A potential bout between Canelo Alvarez and Jake Paul always seemed to be a dream that would never happen. That pipe dream may actually become a reality, but Canelo Alvarez has thrown some serious shade at Jake Paul by mocking the YouTuber turned boxer and pointing out the stark difference between facing real professional fighters and the celebrities or MMA stars Paul has previously fought.
Canelo, how easy of a fight is Jake Paul? How easy of a fight is Jake Paul?
I don't want to say any bad things. I think he doing good things for his own team, but boxing is a little bit different when you fight in a
real fighter.
Yeah,
I feel that.
2 years back, Jake Paul set a bold challenge for himself when he claimed that he would one day step into the ring with Canelo Alvarez. Now, after securing a victory over heavyweight legend Mike Tyson, he is once again calling out the undisputed super middleweight champion.
1-0, right? Boxed in the Olympics, didn't medal. 1-0, just had one professional fight. He's a cruiserweight. You can have him, and I'll tell you what, I'll even provide him. Well, actually, let me be careful on the price.
I don't know.
No, but I'm telling you, I've got five.
Let's do it. No problem.
Okay.
I already said I'm down. We're betting $1 million. I'm taking on anyone on your roster with under 10 fights. No problem. And that's right now too. Just wait to just give me a couple of years, bro. Ooh, I'm coming for your boy Canelo.
Yeah,
I'm coming for your boy Canelo.
Okay.
That's on God.
Look, I don't think he minds that fight.
By calling out Canelo Alvarez, Jake Paul has even surprised Eddie Hearn, who had previously dismissed him as nothing more than a sideshow in boxing. Hearn, who has been one of Jake's biggest critics, once slammed his boxing ambitions, questioning his legitimacy as a real contender. But now, after defeating Mike Tyson and setting his sights on Canelo, Jake Paul has forced even the toughest skeptics to take notice. With his confidence at an all-time high, Jake Paul is aiming for the biggest fight of his career, and this showdown with Canelo Alvarez is even bigger than his bout with Mike Tyson.
There are some reports now coming out that Canelo-Jake Paul is a thing in May as well, which, by the way, what a freaking year for Canelo Alvarez. Holy shit. Those are two gigantic paydays, and he's the one who coined the phrase payday, payday, payday. So these are two massive things.
Because I think a lot of people are going to want to see Jake Paul lose, and
100%. Canelo's going to do this. Canelo would do this. And we're
let's
just talking.
Let's backtrack to your first question, which is interest. I'm very interested because, as I've long said, I'm on this corner. I only care about Jake Paul in spectacles. It would be an absolute spectacle to see a pound for pound. First, he did Mike Tyson, which, and I'm not going all the way back, but I'm saying in his most recent outing, Mike Tyson, an all-time legend, a pop culture icon, versus Jake Paul, is a spectacle.
Canadian-American journalist Ariel Helwani predicted that Jake Paul has no chance against Canelo Alvarez, but acknowledges that the fight would be a massive spectacle. He points out that Jake Paul has been calling for this fight for a long time, and if it actually happens, he deserves credit for making it a reality.
If it's a close fight, does it diminish the gigantic fight in September, or does it make you more interested? Because I think now, I mean, David Benavidez offered a deferring point, but I think a lot of people think Canelo is just going to be too big for Terence Crawford. If it's a big fight, close fight that a lot of people will watch in May, would it make the basically?
I'm gonna give you a spoiler.
If you're Turkey and you got this gigantic fight at Allegiant Stadium in September, are you like, man, what are we doing here?
A fight between Canelo Alvarez and Jake Paul would be a complete mismatch in terms of skill, experience, and overall boxing ability. Canelo is a 4-division world champion with elite skills, power, and ring IQ. Paul has improved significantly since turning professional, but has mostly faced MMA fighters and older boxers.
They're gonna play this, Rick. This is like a Dana White video. They're gonna make it in the aftermath.
There is no way it's gonna be in black and white.
You know what? I'm willing. I'll roll the dice on this one. I like my odds. There ain't no way. There is no chance in hell that Jake Paul is competitive with Canelo Alvarez. It's not possible. I'm sorry.
Go full on Eric here. Go full on Eric. We need the full.
We need the black and white. We need the lower
mainstream
third.
media.
Eric Jack.
Say it again.
Boxing media member. I respect what Jake Paul has done in a very short time in boxing. He is not a boxer the caliber of Canelo Alvarez.
Helwani put on the fact that Canelo is one of the biggest stars in boxing, having been a dominant figure for over a decade. He references Jake Paul's involvement in the sport, possibly hinting at how boxing is evolving into an entertainment-driven business.
I don't love Terence's odds in that fight. I actually have Terence #1 pound for pound still. I don't love his chances. I just think he's going to be too small to Millie, and Canelo's going to be too big. But he's got a hell of a better chance than Jake Paul does. I'll tell you that much. Because it's 0.
What a world. If this, by the way, if this happens, both have yet to be officially announced. If it happens, what a freaking world we're living in. Jake Canelo goes back-to-back.
I was going to say,
my
God, could you imagine?
Boss move.
I see all these reports that are like Canelo-Crawford first ever fight at Allegiant. What if it's actually Canelo Paul?
Or you could go back to Cowboy Stadium.
Serious
Is it
question.
Netflix worthy? Netflix worthy, that's
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
big
think it was
business, man. Canelo is pound for pound, massive superstar.
Also, the fact that Canelo, one of the true faces of boxing over the past 10 years, is the guy, like, you beat up Mike Tyson, and now come to me.
Canelo last fought at 168 pounds, though he's fought as high as 175 pounds. Paul has fought as high as 228.5 pounds in his last fight and as low as 181 pounds. Rafael stated, "The sides are in the early stages of discussing the fight for this spring targeted for Las Vegas on May 3rd. The Cinco de Mayo weekend Mexico's Alvarez traditionally fights on multiple sources with knowledge of the talks told Fight Freaks Unite." He stressed the conversations are in the early stages and very preliminary with a variety of things that would need to be hashed out, not the least of which is the contract weight. Alvarez, who is now 34 years old, has also reportedly agreed to a bout against pound-for-pound great Terence Crawford for September at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Canelo holds 3 of the 4 major belts at super middleweight, and his manager Eddie Reynoso said last week that IBF champion William Skull and Christian Mbili, who is ranked #1 by the WBC, were the 2 likely opponents for May.
Out of the sky, it's off. It's off. That feels to me like it's an emotional response. So that's how it feels. I'm only speculating, but it feels to me that someone bumped heads somewhere and just said, well, forget the whole thing. That's how it kind of feels to me, okay? This cannot be the case. Canelo versus Jake Paul bet not have replaced the fight. That's what's, I was warming up to the idea of Canelo versus Jake Paul because they were going to give us the most anticipated bout this year, okay? Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. Because listen, like I said, I loved when I didn't mind Gervonta Tank Davis fighting Hector Garcia because he was giving us Ryan Garcia after that.
Jake Paul, the YouTube and social media star's last bout, was a unanimous decision win over the 58-year-old former heavyweight champion and boxing Hall of Famer Mike Tyson. The bout was 8 2-minute rounds. Jake Paul's previous fight was streamed live on Netflix on Friday, November 15 from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where a total of 72,300 total attendees gathered to witness the historic fight card. At home, streaming peaked at 65 million concurrent streams watching around the world, with 38 million concurrent streams in the United States. In the main event, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson entered the ring to slug it out in a heavyweight bout for 8 2-minute rounds. Tyson showed signs reminiscent of his life as a champion throughout the fight, while Paul landed clean shots in several rounds to give him the edge with the judges. In the end, Paul was declared the winner by a unanimous decision.
I'm fascinated by the Crawford Canelo affair because ultimately Canelo stepped up 2 weight classes to go to light heavyweight and got dealt with by Dimitri Bivol. So there's a part of me that thinks there's a distinct possibility that will happen to Terence Crawford because the natural at that weight is Canelo, but Crawford is a natural. Yeah, he's a brilliant fighter. So it'll be a great fight, either which way.
I mean, Spence, I've got to say, if Canelo goes in with Jake Paul, many will say, "Oh, that's it. The sport of boxing is gone."
Well, no, I don't think the sport of boxing's gone, because if Canelo goes in with Jake Paul, let's have it right, guys. No, I mean, you're talking about Jake Paul calling out granddads in Mike Tyson, and that fight, you look at that where Mike Tyson could barely walk up the steps at the time, and it became evident when we was out there.
You were bloody championing it.
Yeah, that's before I got out there, Simon, and saw the state of Mike Tyson. If I'm totally honest, he weren't in the greatest of health, and he done his job, and we saw, Jake.
But it is a fair argument, Spence. I know that what you're saying it has validity to it as well.
In a fiery statement, Spencer criticized the idea of a Canelo versus Jake Paul fight, calling it a joke and stressing that such a matchup would damage the reputation of boxing. He questioned how someone could earn a world title shot just because of a big social media following, rather than real skill in the ring. Spencer clearly believes that fights like this, driven by celebrity and hype, only detract from the sport's integrity.
But if you put Jake Paul in a ring with a bona fide all-time great, you're discrediting the sport. You're making it about something that's not competitive. This is just money. It's taking the mickey out of the fans, and it's giving Jake Paul some validity by association. That's what it's doing, and that's why people will say, come on now, that's taking boxing in the wrong direction.
Simon, you're right. It puts boxing into disrepute in many ways, if I'm totally honest, because like you say, it's sort of disrespecting the sport. Jake Paul and what he's doing and all this stuff with UFC fighters and ex-champions that are 60 plus.
The Jake Paul versus Canelo Alvarez fight is being called a joke by many in the boxing world. Critics argue that it's an absurd matchup that doesn't belong in the sport, with Canelo being one of the greatest fighters of his generation, while Jake Paul has only fought in celebrity bouts and made his name through social media, but massive fan following. The concern is that this fight could bring disrepute to boxing, turning it into a spectacle rather than a true test of skill and ability. With Canelo's vast experience and accomplishments, many believe he has no business fighting someone with Jake Paul's limited background in the sport.
Great, there's a home for that. Jake Paul's fans will like that. That's a different, that's a different era we're talking about, a different fan base that we're talking about. Canelo going in with Jake Paul. Where does Jake Paul earn the right to box Canelo?
Exactly.
Let's have it right here.
Yeah.
We're talking about a modern day great, and we're talking about a current world champion. How does Jake Paul fit into that top 10 when you're talking about Adam Azim, who's like, a legitimate great world-class fighter who's not even in WBC top 10? Come on, guys, we've got to have this right. Canelo versus Jake Paul is a joke, and we don't need to see it in boxing because it does put the sport really into disrepute, because it will, you say, where's this going? What is this all about?
Crawford has never competed higher than 154 pounds, with just one bout in the weight class. He will move up to 168 pounds as he looks to build on an already impressive resume, which includes becoming the first undisputed champion in 2 weight classes in the 4-belt era. Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford, announced by the Ring magazine. Turki Alalshik has made an impact on the boxing world over the past several years, looking to bring super fights back to the sport. He purchased Ring magazine in November, and the publication was the one to break the news that Canelo Alvarez will put his super middleweight titles on the line against Terence Crawford later this year. Tweeting, Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford now has an agreement in place for a September mega fight on a Riyadh season card in Las Vegas, the Ring has learned. The lone reason for Canelo to seek a bout with Paul is the money it would generate for what would more than likely be an easy win for the Mexican superstar. It could also just be to eventually pivot to Skull or Mbili and make that bout look better. Regardless, a potential bout versus Paul could be argued as a black eye for the sport of boxing though, given Canelo's recent choice of opposition when he had David Benavidez in his weight class. It's clear he won't care as he laughs his way to the bank. Jake Paul last fought 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Despite his seemingly respectable record, Paul's level of competition remains under scrutiny, and his sole loss came against Tommy Fury, arguably the only legitimate boxer he has faced. Canelo Alvarez, meanwhile, is the best of the best and one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of gloves. Canelo's former opponent, Floyd Mayweather, once predicted how the Mexican would handle Paul. Mayweather didn't mince his words one bit. Speaking to the media back in September 2022, Mayweather said, once Jake Paul fights a real fighter that can really fight, it's not going to be that good. He'd get faces up by Canelo. There is no way he'd get demolished. Canelo Alvarez looks set to take on Terence Crawford in a generational showdown in September. However, he is expected to compete in May as well, and Jake Paul has emerged as his surprise opponent. In the recent past, Canelo has fought nothing but top-tier competition. Hence, being linked with fighting someone like Paul is surprising. To Paul's credit, his antics have managed to garner a massive audience. While the purists and naysayers remain skeptical, Paul has proven that he has the ability to move the needle. A fight between him and Canelo should would guarantee fat paychecks for both men, meaning yet another commercial success. Despite speculation that Alvarez would face IBF champion William Skull or rising contender Christian Mbili, reports indicate he has instead agreed to a high-profile fight against Paul. The YouTuber-turned-fighter is coming off a blockbuster exhibition against Mike Tyson in November, following his victory over MMA veteran Mike Perry in July. While Paul has steadily built his boxing record, few give him a real chance against Alvarez, widely regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters. The fight is expected to generate massive revenue, but has also drawn criticism from boxing purists who argue it's a non-competitive spectacle rather than a legitimate title bout. Alvarez's decision to take this fight means he will go a full year without facing a true super middleweight contender. However, with his showdown against Crawford looming, fans will be watching closely to see if this bout is just a stepping stone or an unnecessary risk. The long-discussed bout between Saul Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford is inching toward being finalized. A new report from The Ring magazine claims that an agreement is in place for the two pound-for-pound talents to fight this September in Las Vegas. It is worth noting that The Ring is now owned by Turki Alalshik, and Alalshik would also be one of the men behind getting the fight done, as it would reportedly be a part of Riyadh season despite being held in Las Vegas. Momentum started to build for Alvarez versus Crawford in 2023, with Crawford looking for a huge payday after defeating Errol Spence Jr. to become undisputed welterweight champion. The difference in weight between Crawford and Alvarez, who is the current unified and former undisputed super middleweight champion, made it seem unlikely the fight would ever come together. Crawford moved up to junior middleweight in his lone fight since defeating Spence, a unanimous decision win over Israel Madrimov to capture the WBA world title. Crawford was a bit less explosive and dominant against Madrimov compared to the wrecking ball he'd been one weight division lower. Crawford now must move up from 154 pounds all the way to 168 pounds to face Alvarez, who has won titles as high as the 175-pound light heavyweight division. Both fighters have won world titles in 4 divisions, and both have achieved undisputed status, making them two of the best fighters of their generation. Crawford currently holds the third spot in the CBS Sports pound-for-pound rankings, while Alvarez sits at number 1. Alvarez has spent recent years fighting opposition a step below what fans wanted, including easily dispatching of another junior middleweight champion in Jermell Charlo. After his 2 best available challengers, David Benavidez and David Morrell, both moved to light heavyweight after Alvarez made it clear he had no intention of fighting them, the Mexican superstar was left without a clear choice for his next fight. Canelo will have a weight advantage as the fight is expected to be at 168 pounds, meaning Crawford will move up 2 weight classes. Amir Khan, a former opponent of both men, has backed Bud to get the win. Speaking to The Ring magazine, Khan said, "I wish him Crawford all the best, and I think he can do it. One thing about Terence Crawford is he has a great boxing IQ. His IQ is so perfect that he'll see everything. You need everything in the game, from the ring IQ to you need movement, you need power, and speed. Crawford does hit hard. A lot of people don't give Crawford the credit for the punch power he has. Crawford does hit hard. I was in the ring with him and he was hitting me hard. Both men are currently 2 of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and their potential fight could become the most highly anticipated contest of the year." While Canelo is known for his overwhelming power, Khan believes Crawford has the strength to not only hurt Canelo, but also push him back, proving he's more than just a challenge. Amir Khan added, "Obviously the more powerful fighter between the two is going to be Canelo, but Crawford has enough power to hurt Canelo and push him back and show him that he's right in front of him as a challenge." Legendary trainer Teddy Atlas gives his prediction for Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. Teddy Atlas, known for his sharp analysis and no-nonsense approach, isn't shy about picking Crawford to pull off the upset against Alvarez. Speaking on the Fight podcast, Atlas expressed his belief in Crawford's special qualities that transcend physical advantages. "I think you know where I'm leaning. I'll make it even clearer when I'm learning, so there isn't a lot of suspense. I ain't going against Crawford. I do think he is that special guy. I think Canelo's special too, but Crawford even more so. He hasn't learned how to lose yet. I think he does have those special ingredients that go beyond the physical. So that's it, okay? You don't like it? Too bad." Atlas acknowledged that while both fighters are exceptional, Terence Crawford possesses something unique. Teddy Atlas's endorsement carries significant weight given his decades of experience training world champions and analyzing the sport's biggest fights. Terence Crawford started his career at lightweight, systematically conquering division after division while maintaining his undefeated record. Meanwhile, Canelo Alvarez transformed from a teenage prodigy into boxing's biggest star, facing everyone from Floyd Mayweather to Gennady Golovkin. After his recent setback against Dimitri Bivol at light heavyweight, Canelo returned to form with dominant performances against Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga at super middleweight. As the speculation around Jake Paul versus Canelo Alvarez continues to swirl, one thing is certain: this potential fight has taken the boxing world by storm. Whether it's a spectacle or a serious showdown, it's clear that Jake Paul's bold ambitions are making waves, and Canelo's dominance is being put to the test in ways we've never seen before. Do you think Jake Paul has what it takes to challenge Canelo, or is this just another spectacle for the fans? Let us know your thoughts in the comments about this potential match. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more boxing news and updates. Thanks for watching.